Millions of Americans watched the first GOP presidential debate for the 2024 race. This took place on Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, and millions more have had opinions about it. I am one of those people, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts with you today, starting with some notes on the format of the debate and then going on to the candidates. So let's start here with the formatting. The way the candidates qualified for this first presidential debate is that, number one, they had to reach over 40,000 individual donors. Didn't matter how much those donors gave. I think maybe it was a minimum of $1, but as long as they got 40,000 individual people donating to their campaign, that was the first set of criteria to qualify to get on that stage. And then the second set of criteria was that each candidate had to submit 3 separate polls to the RNC, the Republican National Committee, showing that according to those polls, they had over 1% support among the populace. This got Larry Elder into some trouble with the RNC. Many are saying absurdly so. Larry Elder qualified for the debate by getting over 40,000 individual donors. He submitted 3 separate polls to the RNC. But literally as Larry Elder was at LAX to fly to Milwaukee to go on the debate stage, the RNC notified him that he actually did not qualify for the debate. Why? Because one of the 3 polls that Larry submitted was the Rasmussen poll. And apparently the RNC has said that the Rasmussen poll has ties to Trump, and thus it does not count as a legitimate poll. Larry Elder claims that he was not told that, and then once he wanted to submit another poll showing that he had over 1% of the vote, it was too late. Larry Elder has also said that the RNC on their Twitter account has cited Rasmussen polls themselves. So Larry and his campaign are suing the RNC, and hopefully he will be on the debate stage for the second GOP debate, which will be held in my home state here of California at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. So we know what the qualifying criteria were. I think that there ought to be a disqualifying criteria, because here's the thing. Yes, this debate was 2 hours. Yes, every candidate on that stage spoke. But like all the other debates that we've seen, it was a free-for-all. People were interrupting each other. They went way past their allotted 30 seconds or a minute. The crowd was going crazy, and really, you couldn't get a real sense of what the candidates were for. You only just got to see how they debated well under those restrictions and that pressure. So I think it would be better to cut the number of people on that stage in half. And the way that I would propose that you do this is having the RNC hold an independent poll, can be conducted by an independent polling firm, that would survey, let's say, 10,000 random Republicans in the United States. And I would propose that it ask one question. It would give all of the names of the candidates that have qualified for the debate, and the question would say, of these following people, tell me if you know any of these people and you know that you would not vote for them. If let's say people chose, a lot of people chose Chris Christie. If Chris Christie got over 40 to 50% of people saying, we know Chris Christie and we will not vote for Chris Christie, then I think that Governor Christie should not have qualified for the debate. Because the thing is, and Chris Christie is a good example, there were a lot of people up on that debate stage who Republicans would just never vote for. As President Trump said in his interview with Tucker Carlson, Chris Christie left his office as governor of New Jersey with an 8% approval rating. A lot of Republicans in this country would never vote for him. So we just have to find a way to have some disqualifiers as well as qualifiers, because otherwise it's just a free-for-all, as we saw it was the other night. And then a final note on formatting. As aforementioned, people went way past the 30 seconds to a minute that they were given. And what they should do, that is the RNC and the debate moderators of Fox News, is that when you hear that bell ding, which is indicating that you are done with your time, what that bell should signal is that the candidates have 10 more seconds. And 10 seconds after that bell rings, their mic gets cut off. That is the only way to keep law and order in a kind of free-for-all debate like this. Because the problem is, if you don't cut off people's mics after a certain period, what is incentivizing people to follow the rules? This kind of format rewards people who interrupt, rewards people who go past their allotted time, and it penalizes people like Senator Tim Scott, who is a great guy, for following the rules. So we have got to be able to cut off a mic. And by the way, I'm saying that this should apply to the Republican debate. I also think it should apply to the Emmys, the Oscars, the Golden Globes, and other televised venues when people are giving speeches, because, dear God, the American people just drone on too long. Okay, those are the notes on formatting. Now let's go to my quick impressions of each of the candidates. And I'm going to divide it into three groupings of candidates who were on that stage. First, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and Vivek Ramaswamy. Those were the two leading in the polls. They were in the center of the stage. Then the next tier is our former Vice President Mike Pence and Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, former governor, I should say, because those are the people that were sort of the next tier of relevance or higher up in the polls. And then the third tier is Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, Governor Doug Burgum of, gosh, I'm forgetting now. Is it South Dakota? Forgive me. I should know this. Or maybe it's North Dakota. It's North Dakota. I said North Dakota. Wink, wink. Asa Hutchinson, governor of Arkansas, and then Ambassador Nikki Haley. Okay, so let's start with DeSantis and Vivek. In many ways, Governor DeSantis appeared the most presidential and the most policy-oriented. By the end of the debate, it didn't at least appear to me that he moved the needle one way or the other for himself. I don't know if he gained that many supporters. He certainly didn't lose any supporters in the aftermath of the debate. Many say that Governor DeSantis lacked charisma. Personally, I don't really care if a candidate lacks charisma. If I were designing a perfect candidate from scratch, would I give them some charisma? Of course. But I care about who's going to be a competent president. So DeSantis did himself a favor by staying above the fray. He even at one point called what was going on stage childish. And so I think he showed the American people that he is very focused. In fact, he even said that during one of his answers. He very deftly slid in the fact that he served in the military for our country in Iraq. And he said that one of the things he learned in Iraq was focusing on the mission. DeSantis certainly focused on the mission the other night. He even said before the debate, this is not entertainment. I'm not here for television ratings. I'm here to show the American people what I can do. His strategy was very good, which is essentially every issue that came up, whether it was education or the border or some other prescient problem, DeSantis's strategy was to say, hey, I have done this. I have fixed these problems. Just look at my record in Florida. That's Governor DeSantis. Vivek Ramaswamy was arguably the man of the night. Immediately out of the gate, within the first 10 minutes of the debate, we saw that these old dogs, and by old dogs, I don't mean it disparagingly, I mean like these old kind of top tier Republicans, such as Governor Christie and Vice President Pence, immediately came after Vivek. Governor Christie called him a rookie, said that he sounded like ChatGPT and was an Obama 2.0. Mike Pence said this is not the time for someone to be learning on the job. That actually helped Vivek. If anything, it made Christie and Pence look threatened and bolstered Vivek's reputation in the eyes of the American people. Vivek probably helped himself the most out of all of the candidates on that stage. He certainly increased his name recognition. Some say that he had too many slogan-sounding answers. That is ironic because one of the things Vivek said during the debate was that everyone else on the stage had prepaid, pre-rehearsed slogans and that he was just speaking directly to the American people. But given the law of the jungle format, where people are interrupting each other, there's limited time, Vivek's strategy of having these pithy slogan-like answers was actually pretty good, again, given the constraints of the debate. Some of the highlights that he said was that the nuclear family is the best form of governance known to mankind. That is a t-shirt. Another one was when he called people on the stage super PAC puppets. So that strategy, at least for Vivek, served him well. Some people are saying that Governor Christie was right, that he appears a lot like an Obama 2.0. I mean, honestly, if you just close your eyes and listen to Vivek, the cadence and the tone of his voice does sound a lot like the cadence and the tone of President Obama. Of course, the content is quite different, but the physical voice itself Sounds a lot like our former president, and that is not seeming to help those who are accusing Vivek of being disingenuous like Obama. I think that Vivek and DeSantis know that they are likely not going to be the nominees in 2024, but they're playing the long game. They realize that in some way or another, President Trump is not going to be around forever. So this is their strategy to kind of stake their claim as his successor and get the American people knowing their names and getting comfortable with them. Let's move on now to Vice President Pence and Governor Chris Christie. Both of them seemed, at least to me, like relics of the past. Certainly, Vice President Pence fit this bill. He seemed kind of like a 1980s, 1990s candidate with some of the things that he was saying. His tone of voice was very slow. Some could say it's presidential and it was clear, but it wasn't energizing. Someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, love him or hate him, he gets you energized. When you're watching him, you feel like you are being entertained. When Mike Pence is speaking, a lot of people just want to fall asleep. I thought that Vivek's rejoinder to one of Mike Pence's answers was really good when Vivek said, Mike, this is not morning in America. This is not the moment that we're at. And it was referring to that old commercial by the Reagan campaign. It's morning in America and it's, time to elect the Reagan people. That was a really good thing to invoke because Mike Pence does come off as someone who was stuck in the past. For instance, when Vivek was talking about how we need to revive our national identity, that is one of the reasons why we are seeing a mental health problem is because Americans don't know who they are. Vice President Pence cut in and said, Vivek, the American identity is great. We don't need some kind of revival. That was missing the mark. Yes, the American identity is great, but it has been lost. Again, love Vivek or hate Vivek, he is right to say that it's been lost. So there were some kind of things where Pence just seemed not in touch with the moment that we are living in now. I also think that Pence way overdid the faith stuff. I am a woman of faith. I have great respect and reverence for Judeo-Christian values. I lament the fact that people nowadays disparage our religious roots and heritage. But when Vice President Pence was talking about giving himself to Jesus Christ, when he was talking about putting his hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible and taking an oath, when he was invoking names like Heavenly Father, it came off, I think, to a lot of the American people as if Vice President Pence is a religious kook. That may not be a right characterization, but a lot of people watching, especially people on the left who are not Republicans, are going to look at Vice President Pence and think that he fulfills every stereotype of the idea that they have of conservatives as all of us being these overly religious people. I don't like when Republicans play into the caricature that left-wing or secular people have of them, and in my judgment, Vice President Pence did that. Also, at times it sounded like he was sort of like playing a president, like Harrison Ford in Air Force One, like an actor plays a president in a movie. A little bit disingenuous by my taste. Chris Christie, Governor Christie, he was really there to troll, it seems. He came right at Vivek. He certainly came at Trump, and a lot of people's criticism of Governor Christie, in my view, not unfounded, was, what are you bringing? Not just what are you fighting against, who do you hate, but what are you actively advocating for? He did have a strong answer about wanting to decrease the role and the power of teachers' unions, but otherwise he came off as a mean-spirited, vindictive candidate who didn't have a forward-looking agenda for the United States. Okay, moving on to the third tier, Tim Scott, Doug Burgum, Asa Hutchinson, and Nikki Haley. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, as I said, is such a sweet, good guy. He's a real conservative. He's a family man, a man of faith. He loves this country, but the problem is he was just too nice for that format. He played by the rules, which penalized him. Also, at times, it appeared that he said some very obvious things in a very conventional way, like, we've got to reverse the decline and we've got to bring our country back. It's like, okay, with all due respect, we know these things. You've got to be really pithy and unique in the answers that you provide. At times, Senator Scott's voice to me seemed a little bit shaky, like he wasn't comfortable in the format. A lot of pressure, totally understand. But if you're trying to sell to the American people that you're going to be the president of the United States, you've really got to get that down. Also, at times, Senator Scott relies too much on his story. His story is an amazing one. He is right that only someone like him with his background, with his race, could rise to where he is, only in the United States of America. That's what Barack Obama said when he was running in 2008. Only in the United States of America could a black man born to a single mother, in a low-income family rise this way. That's not wrong, and it's not wrong to be a story candidate, but that's not all that you can be. You have to add something else or bring something else to the table. Governor Burgum, he was okay. Like Pence, he seemed a little bit lost in time. He also kind of played into the caricature that many left-wingers have of conservatives. I thought his closing statement when he said he was on his horse in North Dakota and was riding into the horizon, and he said, that's the moment we are in America. Nothing is beyond our limits. I thought that was kind of corny and kind of trying to play to the small town vibes. Another candidate who appears to not be able to move off of a certain story. Asa Hutchinson, irrelevant. No shade, just facts. Probably shouldn't even be on that stage. And then finally, Ambassador Nikki Haley. I don't think she moved the needle either way. She didn't help herself. She didn't hurt herself. She had some good answers. Some people say that she was good on the Ukraine issue, explaining to Vivek why if we don't stop Putin now, then it will be a repeat of, Hitler going into other countries, i.e. expanding scope beyond Russia's national borders. Some think she was strong on that. She had a really good moment in the abortion discussion when she said, look, we can have common sense abortion policy. We should not abort a baby at 9 months, but we also shouldn't criminalize women for getting abortions. There were many of those answers where she seemed strong, but again, there were times when she just kind of went for the low-hanging fruit, especially attacking Vivek, so she kind of stayed neutral. The big winner of the night was the elephant not in the room, that is Donald Trump. By the way, there were some moments like that, the elephant not in the room, that were just a little corny for my taste. Like the fact that Fox News opened the debate by playing the Jason Aldean country song and said, Governor DeSantis, why are so many people loving this song? Why is it resonating so much? It's like, okay, this is corny. Let's get on to the issues. I like lean meat, no fat. We have the candidates up here on the stage. Let's ask them questions about policy, not about the #1 song on iTunes. So there were just moments like that when they panned to the Fulton County Jail. That was just like, okay, really? You can ask about President Trump's indictment without doing something corny like that. But anyway, the big winner was the elephant not in the room. Many are saying that his interview or conversation with Tucker Carlson on X got as many as 230 million views. At a minimum, this number is disputed, it got 130 million views. That's amazing. That is half the country that was watching this conversation. I watched it in full after I watched the debate. Frankly, I didn't think that there was anything particularly revelatory about that conversation. It was two people who agreed on a lot of things, just chit-chatting. They started off the conversation by talking about whether Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or was killed. And it's like, okay, let's move forward. Let's ask questions about 2024 and future policy. They were laughing about Kamala Harris and how Kamala Harris speaks and rhymes. Okay, again, it's funny, but like we know that. Let's look to the future. They did have a good conversation about President Trump's track record with leaders like Xi Jinping and Putin, but otherwise, it was really just like two friends smoking a cigar, chit-chatting. Thank you all for watching. I would be very curious to hear what you think. Please comment down below, especially if you disagreed with me on something. I'd love to engage in a discussion with you about it and hear your impressions. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so that you can stay notified every time I post a new video, whether that be news or timeless. I'll see you all soon. Take care.